The time is 11:45 p.m. The only sound is the rhythm of breath pulling through a dry throat. A faint scratching sound echoes. Dust falls. The camera angle shifts. You are looking down through a narrow, jagged crack in rough wooden floorboards. Below, a dimly lit living room comes into focus. A family walks through the front door, a father, a mother, and 6 children. They carry Bibles. They wear Sunday clothes. They laugh. The father pushes the heavy wooden door shut. He turns the iron deadbolt. A loud metallic click echoes through the house. True crime pop culture conditions us to believe a specific narrative. Mass murder is chaotic. Mass murder is loud. Mass murder is born of explosive rage. We expect shattered glass, broken door frames, and frantic screams. We expect the predator to strike from the shadows of the street and force their way inside. The reality of this case challenges that belief. The deadliest predator does not break into your house. They do not shatter your windows. They wait inside your sanctuary for you to lock the doors. They listen to the deadbolt slide into place. They know you are securing the perimeter. They know you are keeping the dangerous world outside. They know you just locked yourself inside a cage with them. The wooden cage. The year is 1912. The town is a small, tight-knit farming community in the American Midwest. Dirt roads cut through endless grids of cornfields. Steam locomotives bring mail and strangers through the center of town twice a day. There are no streetlights. When the sun dips below the horizon, the darkness is absolute. Communities survive on deep, unspoken trust. Neighbors know the exact time the man next door wakes up by the squeak of his iron water pump. They know what the woman across the street is cooking by the smell of wood smoke drifting from her chimney. Doors remain unlocked. The concept of an outside threat infiltrating a home does not exist in the collective mind of the town. The house sits at the end of a quiet residential street. It is a standard wood frame structure, 2 stories, small windows. A steep, narrow staircase connects the main floor to the upper bedrooms. Above the upper bedrooms sits a cramped, unfinished attic. The architecture of early 20th century rural homes dictates a specific acoustic environment. There is no insulation in the walls. There is no soundproofing between the floors. The floorboards rest directly on rough-hewn wooden joists. The walls are thin lath and plaster. Every step taken inside the house resonates. A chair scraping the kitchen floor sounds like a drum in the upstairs bedrooms. A cough in the parlor carries through the ceiling. The house breathes. The wood expands in the summer heat and contracts in the cool night air, causing the framing to settle with sharp groans and snaps. To navigate this house without waking 8 sleeping people requires more than stealth. It requires an intimate, obsessive knowledge of the floor plan. It requires knowing which floorboards sit flush against the joists and which boards bow under weight. It requires knowing the exact cadence of the house. The attic stretches over the upper bedrooms. It is a suffocating space. The roof angles down sharply, preventing a grown man from standing upright. The summer sun beats down on the wooden shingles all day, turning the crawl space into a furnace. The air is stagnant. Dust hangs thick. Spiders build webs between the exposed nails of the roof deck. A small pile of hay rests in the corner near a brick chimney. A man sits in the hay. He sits in the dark. The heat presses against his skin. Sweat drips from his forehead, stinging his eyes. He does not wipe his face. He does not shift his weight. He does not cough. He forces himself to swallow the dust. His muscles cramp from remaining locked in a crouch position. His knees ache. His spine burns. He ignores the pain. He listens. Below him, the house is empty. The family is at the local Presbyterian church. It is the annual Children's Day evening service. The man knows this. He watched them leave. He knows the house is empty, yet he remains in the attic. He claims his territory in the dark. He waits for his targets to return. He reduces himself to a shadow. He breathes in through his nose, shallow and controlled. He merges with the environment. He becomes part of the house, the false sanctuary. The church service ends at 9:30 p.m. The summer air cools. The father, Josiah, gathers his family. His wife, Sarah, holds the hands of the youngest children. They have 4 children of their own. Tonight, they have 2 extra guests. 2 young sisters from a neighboring farm asked to stay the night. The girls did not want to walk the dark dirt roads back to their own property. They asked to sleep in the guest bed upstairs. 8 souls form a group and walk away from the bright lights of the church. They walk down the unpaved streets. Gravel crunches beneath their leather shoes. They pass the neighbors. They exchange pleasantries. They discuss the sermon. They discuss the upcoming harvest. They reach the edge of their property. The house sits dark and quiet. They step onto the front porch. The father opens the front door. The family filters inside. The children run upstairs. They shed their Sunday clothes. They put on cotton nightgowns. They climb into their beds. The 2 visiting girls share a bed in the front room. The parents prepare for sleep in the downstairs master bedroom. The father walks to the front door. He grabs the brass key. He inserts it into the iron lock. He twists his wrist. The heavy tumblers fall into place. He slides the deadbolt across the frame. He checks the back door. He locks it. He pulls the shades down over the glass windows. He performs a ritual repeated by millions of people every night. He secures his home. The act of locking a door is profound. It represents a psychological boundary. A locked door creates a definitive line between the chaos of the outside world and the absolute safety of the inner sanctum. The home is an extension of the self. When the lock clicks, the mind relaxes. The body releases tension. The father believes he just shielded his wife and 6 children from all external threats. He walks into the downstairs bedroom. He lies down next to his wife. He closes his eyes. He falls asleep. In the attic, the man hears the locks click. He hears the children talking. He hears the rustle of cotton sheets. He hears the bed springs compress under the weight of the parents. He listens to the house settle. He listens to the ambient noise fade. Midnight approaches. The breathing of 8 people changes. Awake breathing is erratic. It stops and starts. It pauses for speech. Sleep breathing is rhythmic. It is deep. It is mechanical. The man in the attic listens to the chorus of 8 lungs expanding and contracting. He separates the sounds. He identifies the deep, heavy breaths of the father downstairs. He identifies the lighter, rapid breaths of the children in the adjacent rooms beneath his feet. He knows they are vulnerable. The human brain shuts off the conscious perception of threat during deep REM sleep. The body paralyzes itself. The victims are blind, deaf, and immobile. Their agency is entirely gone. They are tethered to the physical world only by the air moving through their throats. The man waits. He does not rush. He lets the hours pass. He lets the deep sleep take full hold of the house. He enjoys the anticipation. The massacre is not a sudden impulse. It is a calculated, functional operation. The silent morning. The sun breaches the horizon at 5 a.m. The sky turns a pale grey, then a bright, piercing blue. The summer heat begins to rise, burning the dew off the tall grass. The roosters crow. The town wakes up. Mary Peckham steps onto her back porch. She is the next-door neighbour. She holds a woven basket full of wet laundry. She walks to the clothesline spanning the length of her yard. She pins a white cotton shirt to the wire. She pins a dress. She reaches for a pair of trousers. She stops. She looks over the low wooden fence separating her property from the Moore house. The routine of the town dictates movement by this hour. Farmers are up before the sun. Livestock requires immediate attention. Animals do not understand sleeping in, but the Moore property is entirely still. Mary studies the yard. The dirt is undisturbed. The chickens gather near the wire mesh of their coop. They pace, they peck at the empty wooden trough. They cluck, expecting the daily scatter of feed. The feed bucket remains hanging on the side of the barn. In the barn, the heavy draft horses stomp their hooves against the wooden stall floors. They huff in the morning air. They are hungry. They are restless. Mary looks at the house. The chimney is cold. No white smoke drifts into the sky. No smell of burning wood or frying eggs fills the air. The back door is shut. The front door is shut. Every window is closed. Every shade is drawn tight against the glass, pulled down to the wooden sills. The house looks blind. It looks dead. She finishes hanging her laundry. She walks back inside. She pours a cup of coffee. She sits at her kitchen table. She watches the house through her window. The clock on the wall ticks. 6 Charmam. 7 Am. 7:30 Am. The stillness becomes oppressive. It is no longer an anomaly. It is a warning. Mary walks out her front door. She crosses the grass. She steps onto the moor's front porch. She knocks on the heavy wooden door. Her knuckles hit the wood. The sound is flat. It does not echo. The house swallows the noise. She waits. She listens for the sound of footsteps inside. She listens for the creak of the floorboards. Nothing. She walks around the perimeter of the house. She approaches the back door. She turns the brass knob. It does not give. It is locked from the inside. She presses her face against the small pane of glass in the back door. The shade is drawn. She cannot see the kitchen. She cups her hands around her eyes to block the sun. She looks for a gap in the fabric. A sliver of darkness stares back at her. She steps away from the house. Her heart beats faster. The primal instinct of the human brain recognizes danger even when the eyes see nothing. The absence of normal life is more terrifying than the presence of an obvious threat. She walks back to her house. She walks to her wall-mounted telephone. She turns the crank. She connects to the operator. She asks for the hardware store in town. Ross Moore stands behind the counter of the hardware store. He is Josiah's brother. He stocks shelves. He sweeps the floor. The telephone rings. He answers. Mary speaks into the receiver. Her voice is tight. She tells Ross that the house is quiet. She tells him the animals are unfed. She tells him the doors are locked. She tells him the shades are drawn. Ross drops his broom. He grabs his coat. He walks out the door. He walks down the dirt streets. He does not run. He walks with heavy, purposeful steps. He rationalizes the situation in his mind. Perhaps the family took an early train out of town. Perhaps they went to visit relatives. Perhaps they are sick. He builds logical scenarios to combat the growing knot of dread in his stomach. He arrives at the property. Mary stands on her porch. She points to the house. Ross nods. He walks up the steps. He knocks on the door. He knocks harder than Mary. He hits the wood with the meat of his fist. The door rattles in its frame. "Josiah!" he shouts. The town remains quiet around him. The birds chirp. The horses stomp. The house offers no reply. Ross reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a heavy iron keyring. As the brother, he possesses a master key that fits the front door lock. He selects a long brass key. He inserts it into the keyhole. The metal scrapes against the iron. He turns his wrist. The tumblers fall. The deadbolt slides back. The heavy metallic click echoes on the porch. Ross places his hand on the knob. He pushes the door open. The house of mirrors. The door swings inward. The sunlight cuts a bright, sharp rectangle across the floorboards of the parlor. A wave of air hits Ross in the face. The house is an oven. The summer heat, trapped by the closed windows and drawn shades, baked the interior all morning. The air is thick. It is heavy. It carries a smell. It is not the smell of an empty house. Empty houses smell like dust and dry wood. This house smells like a slaughterhouse. It is a dense metallic odor. The sharp, overwhelming stench of raw copper mixes with the sour reek of voided bowels. Beneath the smell of blood and death lies another scent. A domestic scent. A scent that breaks the mind of the man standing in the doorway. It smells like cooked pork. Ross steps across the threshold. The sunlight from the open door illuminates the parlor. but the edges of the room remain swallowed in deep shadow. He looks to his left. A large standing mirror sits against the wall. It is draped in dark fabric. Someone took a black skirt from a bedroom closet and carefully pinned it over the glass. No reflection is visible. He looks at the glass panes of the windows. Old shirts and torn bedsheets hang over the glass, blocking the outside world. Ross takes another step. The floorboard creaks under his boot. He peers through the archway into the downstairs bedroom. The shadows are thick, but the shapes on the bed are unmistakable. Two forms lie under the blankets. The sheets are soaked in a dark, rust-colored stain. The stain spreads across the mattress and drips onto the wooden floor, forming a thick, congealed pool. The heads of the figures are wrapped in blood-soaked clothing. The fabric is crushed downward into the pillows, caved in by massive, repetitive force. Ross stops breathing. He does not scream. He does not run. His brain refuses to process the visual information. He steps backward. His boot retreats over the threshold. He pulls the heavy wooden door shut. He turns the key. He locks the house. He turns to Mary Peckham. He looks at her. His face is entirely drained of color. "Get the sheriff," he says. The town marshal arrives 20 minutes later. His name is Hank Horton. He carries a revolver. He carries a lantern. He takes the key from Ross. He unlocks the door. He steps inside the oven. Horton walks past the draped mirrors. He walks past the slaughtered parents in the downstairs bedroom. He forces himself to look at the ceiling above their bed. Deep, violent gouge marks tear through the plaster. The killer swung a weapon with such extreme, uncontrolled force that the heavy steel head bit into the lath and plaster above the bed on the backswing. Wood splinters hang loose. Dust coats the blood-soaked sheets below. Horton leaves the bedroom. He walks into the kitchen. He stops. The killer did not panic. The killer did not strike and run into the night, terrified of discovery. The killer felt entirely secure. The killer claimed the house as his own. On the cast-iron stove rests a heavy frying pan. Inside the pan lie several thick strips of bacon. The fat is congealed, turning white in the iron skillet. Next to the pan sits a ceramic plate. A piece of cooked meat rests on the plate. Beside the plate sits a half-eaten loaf of bread. The killer slaughtered the parents in the next room. He listened to their bones shatter. He listened to the blood hit the floor. Then he walked into the kitchen. He opened the icebox. He pulled out a slab of bacon. He struck a match. He lit the stove. He cooked a meal. He stood over the hot iron, listening to the fat crackle and pop while the bodies of his victims bled out mere feet away. He ate in the dark. Horton turns away from the stove. He looks at the washstand. A ceramic bowl sits on the wood. It is filled with water. The water is a deep, murky red. The killer washed his hands. He washed the gore from his skin before he ate. Horton's eyes scan the floor. He finds the weapon. It rests casually against the wall near the kitchen doorway. It is a heavy, 4-pound wood-chopping axe. The handle is made of solid hickory. It is 30 inches long. The wood is slick with dark, drying blood. The heavy steel head is coated in a thick paste of blood, hair, and grey brain matter. It is Josiah Moore's axe. The killer did not bring a weapon. The killer brought nothing. He arrived empty-handed. He found the axe in the coal shed outside. He brought it into the house. He used the family's own tools to dismantle them. Horton picks up his lantern. He must check the rest of the house. He must climb the stairs. He must find the children. He walks to the narrow wooden staircase. The steps are steep. They vanish into the pitch-black upper floor. Horton raises the lantern. The yellow light throws long, distorted shadows against the walls. He places his foot on the first step. The wood groans. He climbs. He reaches the landing. The upper floor contains 2 small bedrooms. He enters the front room. The 2 visiting sisters lie in the bed. Their heads are crushed. Their faces are unrecognizable. Blankets are pulled up to their chins. a bizarre gesture of tucking them in after ending their lives. He enters the back room. The 4 more children lie in their beds. They are dead. The same brutal, repetitive strikes, the same pulverized bone, the same blood soaking through the thin mattresses and pooling on the floorboards. Horton stands in the hallway. 8 bodies, 8 crushed skulls. He looks up. Above him sits the square cut out in the ceiling leading to the attic. The access panel is pushed aside. A black void stares down at the marshal. Horton grips his lantern. He climbs a chair. He lifts the lantern into the dark space. The attic heat hits his face. The smell of old dust and dry hay fills his nose. He shines the light across the rough floorboards. He illuminates the pile of hay near the brick chimney. The hay is pressed down. A deep indentation marks the spot where a grown man sat. The shape of a human body is pressed into the dry grass. Next to the indentation, resting carefully on the wooden planks, sit 2 cigarette butts. They are not smoked. They are unlit. They are placed side by side, arranged with precise, deliberate care. Horton lowers the lantern. He steps down from the chair. The evidence tells a story that shatters the foundation of the town's reality. The killer did not break in. The killer did not follow them home. The killer was already there. He waited in the stifling heat. He listened to the family return. He listened to the father lock the door. He listened to them pray. He listened to them sleep. He moved through the house with absolute silence. He swung the axe. He covered the mirrors, terrified of his own reflection or adhering to a dark superstition regarding the souls of the dead. He cooked his meal. He washed his hands. He vanished before the sun came up. The town of Villisca wakes up on a sunny summer morning. They water their horses. They feed their chickens. They talk over the fences. They do not know it yet, but the concept of safety is already dead. The illusion of the sanctuary is broken. The lock on the door is no longer a shield. It is the mechanism of a trap. The investigation begins, but the physical evidence left behind in the House of Mirrors offers no simple answers. It only offers a descent into a psychological darkness that the town and the world is entirely unequipped to face. The shattered illusion. Word of the slaughter does not travel through official channels. It travels like a contagion. Mary Peckham speaks to Ross Moore. Ross Moore speaks to the marshal. The hardware store clerk tells a customer. The customer runs down the dirt street. Within an hour, the town of Villisca changes forever. Hundreds of people abandon their daily routines. Farmers drop their tools in the fields. Shopkeepers lock their doors. Women pull their children out of the schoolhouse. They gather on the lawn of the Moore residence. They form a tight, buzzing crowd. Fear manifests as morbid curiosity. The concept of an invisible killer walking among them is too vast for the human mind to process in real time. They need to see the evidence. They need to look at the blood to confirm the nightmare is real. Law enforcement in 1912 is not equipped for a crime of this magnitude. Marshal Hank Horton stands on the front porch. He holds his hands up. He tells the crowd to step back. The crowd does not listen. Men push past him. They walk through the front door. They walk through the parlor. They step into the thick, dark pools of blood on the floorboards. The crime scene is decimated. Neighbors wander through the downstairs bedroom. They stare at the crushed skulls of Josiah and Sarah Moore. They walk upstairs. They look at the dead children. They track blood on the soles of their boots. The blood spreads from the house to the front porch, from the porch to the lawn, and from the lawn to the dirt roads of the town. The physical evidence is trampled into dust. Enterprising locals pocket pieces of shattered bone and splinters of wood from the ceiling as souvenirs. By the time the coroner arrives from a neighboring county, the scientific value of the house is gone. The temperature of the bodies cannot determine the exact time of death. The positioning of the limbs is altered. The footprints on the floor belong to 50 different local farmers. The authorities bring in bloodhounds. They bring the dogs to the front porch. They hold the dogs by thick leather leashes. They point the dogs toward the scent of the killer. The dogs sniff the ground. They walk in circles. The dogs are overwhelmed. The scent of the killer is mixed with the scent of the entire town. The dogs follow a faint trail down the street. They lead the authorities to the edge of the Nodaway River. They stop at the water. They sit down. The trail vanishes. The sun sets on the first day. The true psychological horror sets in. The townspeople return to their homes. They look at their own front doors. They look at their own windows. They realize the killer might be gone, or the killer might be the man living next door. The hardware stores sell out of deadbolts. They sell out of window latches. They sell out of ammunition. Men sit in their parlors with loaded shotguns resting on their knees. They do not sleep. They watch the shadows stretch across their walls. The community trust evaporates in a single afternoon. Neighbors stop talking. They lock their gates. They look at each other with deep, silent suspicion. The wealthy rival. A crime without a clear motive requires the invention of one. The town needs a target for its fear. They look at the social dynamics of the community. They find Frank Jones. Frank Jones is the most powerful man in the county. He is wealthy. He is a prominent state senator. He owns the largest farm equipment store in town. For years, Josiah Moore was his best employee. Josiah was a hard worker. He knew the business. He knew the customers. Then Josiah Moore quit. He opened his own farm equipment store down the street. He did not just open a competing business. He took the John Deere franchise with him. He took the most lucrative contract in the region. Frank Jones lost a massive stream of revenue. He lost face. The tension between the two men was a known fact. It was an open secret. They did not speak. They crossed the street to avoid walking past one another. Rumors begin to circulate. The town narrative states that a man like Frank Jones does not dirty his own hands. A man like Frank Jones uses his wealth to solve his problems. He buys a solution. The theory suggests Jones hired a professional to eliminate his rival. Investigators look for a hired killer. They find the name William Mansfield. Mansfield is a transient laborer from Illinois. He has a dark reputation. He is a prime suspect in a series of similar axe murders in other Midwestern states. The methods align. The other murders involved a heavy axe. They involved covering mirrors with cloth. They involved families slaughtered in their beds. The town clings to this theory. It provides a logical framework for an illogical event. A hitman operates on a contract. A hitman targets a specific person for money. If Frank Jones hired a hitman, the town is safe. The danger was specific. The danger was contained to the Moore family. Authorities locate William Mansfield. They build a case. They bring witnesses who claim they saw Mansfield in town the day before the murders. They push for a grand jury indictment. The relief is brief. The theory falls apart. Mansfield produces payroll records. He produces employer statements. He proves he was hundreds of miles away in Illinois on the night of the murders. He has an unbreakable alibi. The case against Mansfield is dismissed. The connection to Frank Jones remains unproven. The logic fails. The town is forced to confront the void again. The killer did not act for money. The killer did not act on a business rivalry. The killer acted on a psychological need that no rational mind can comprehend. The whispering minister. With the hitman theory dead, the authorities look for strange behavior. They look for men who do not fit the mold of a normal citizen. They turn their attention to Reverend George Kelly. Kelly is a traveling minister. He travels the Midwest preaching at small local churches. He is a small, frail man. He suffers from a history of mental instability. He has a documented obsession with the concept of deep sin, brutal repentance, and the sexual purity of young girls. He was in town the night of the murders. He attended the Children's Day service at the Presbyterian Church. He sat in the pews. He watched the Moore children. He watched the two young visiting sisters. The morning after the murders, before the bodies are discovered by Mary Peckham, Kelly leaves town. He boards a 5 a.m. steam train. He sits in the passenger car. Other passengers observe his behavior. He stares out the window. He mutters to himself. He talks about blood. He talks about slaying the wicked. He quotes violent passages from the Old Testament. Weeks later, Kelly sends a heavy package to a laundry service in a neighboring town. The package contains a pile of clothes. Several of his shirts are stained with dark, dried blood. He also begins writing letters to the authorities and the local newspapers. He claims God speaks to him about the murders. He provides detailed descriptions of the crime scene. He describes the sounds the killer heard. He describes the positioning of the bodies. He claims he is merely relaying visions given to him by a higher power. Investigators arrest him. They put him in an interrogation room. They apply pressure. They question him for hours in the stifling heat. Kelly breaks. He signs a full written confession. He admits he hid in the attic. He admits he swung the axe. He claims a voice from heaven commanded him to slay the children, to save them from a lifetime of sin. The town exhales. They have a monster. They have a face to put on the terror. But the confession is hollow. Kelly retracts his statement the next day. He claims the police forced him to sign the paper. He claims they dictated the words to him. The case goes to trial. The defense lawyers dismantle the prosecution. They point out Kelly's small stature. They argue a man of his weak physical condition could not swing a 4-pound axe with enough force to embed the steel head into the ceiling plaster. They argue the blood on his shirts came from a documented nosebleed. They expose his mental illness. They show the jury that Kelly is a man who craves attention. He inserts himself into high-profile situations to feel important. The jury deliberates. They return a verdict of not guilty. Kelly is released. The second suspect walks away. The investigation hits a permanent wall. The town realizes the law cannot protect them. The law cannot even find the man who butchered 8 people. The physical files go into boxes. The boxes go into deep storage. The decades pass. The silent years. The Moore house stands empty for years. Then it is sold. Families move in. Families move out. The town grows. The dirt roads are paved. Streetlights are installed. Cars replace horses. The physical landscape changes, but the psychological scar remains. More than a century later, modern behavioral scientists open the old boxes. They pull out the original crime scene photographs. They read the coroner reports. They review the physical evidence without the prejudice of local gossip. They strip away the politics of Frank Jones. They strip away the religious hysteria of Reverend Kelly. They look at the murder through the lens of modern geographic profiling and behavioral analysis. The experts find a pattern. They look at the railway lines of the early 1900s. The Midwest was connected by a massive web of train tracks. Small towns were stops along the line. Transient killers used this network. They rode the boxcars in the dead of night. They stepped off the train in a new town. They selected a target. They committed their crimes. They walked back to the rail yard and vanished on the next outbound train before the sun came up. This killer was a phantom of the rails. He did not know the Moore family. He did not care about their names. He did not care about their business. He cared about the house. He selected the house based on precise environmental factors. It sat at the end of a street. It was close enough to the rail line to provide a quick escape route. It had a coal shed in the back to provide a weapon. It had an accessible layout. The killer was an organized offender. He operated with extreme discipline. He was driven by a specific, repeating ritual. He needed total control of a domestic space. He did not want to steal money. He wanted to steal the family's role. He wanted to sit in their kitchen. He wanted to eat their food. He wanted to be the master of the house for a few dark hours. The family members were not his enemies. They were merely biological obstacles standing in the way of his ritual. They had to be removed. To execute this ritual, he required absolute silence. He required perfect timing, the slow descent. Modern analysis takes the viewer back to 1912. It reconstructs the killer's movements second by second. This is the reality of the crime. This is the mechanical process of death. It is midnight. The house is pitch black. The air in the attic is thick and hot. The killer sits in the hay. He holds the 4-pound wood-chopping axe. The hickory handle is smooth in his hands. He waits for the deep rhythm of sleep breathing from the rooms below. He moves. He does not stand up. He slides his body across the rough wooden planks. He moves 1 inch at a time. He tests the weight of the floorboards with his palms before he commits his body weight. He feels for the nails. He feels for the weak spots in the wood. He takes a full minute to cross a distance of 3 feet. He reaches the square access panel in the floor. He grips the edge of the wood. He pulls the panel to the side. The wood scrapes against wood. The sound is tiny. To the killer, it sounds like a gunshot. He freezes. He stops breathing. He listens to the house. The father continues to snore downstairs. The children continue their steady breathing. The house accepts the sound. The killer lowers his legs into the black hole. He finds the top of the wall frame with his bare toes. He supports his weight. He lowers his torso. He grips the heavy axe in one hand. He slides down into the second-floor hallway. His feet touch the floorboards. The floorboards rest directly on the joists. He shifts his weight from his left foot to his right foot. A microscopic squeak escapes from the wood beneath his heel. He freezes again. He stands in the dark hallway. He stands outside the children's bedroom door. He does not move a single muscle. He lets the minutes pass. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The muscles in his legs burn. His grip on the axe handle tightens. He regulates his heart rate. He merges his own breathing with the rhythm of the breathing coming from the beds. He calculates his path. He knows he cannot strike the children first. The father is the primary threat. The father is a grown man. If the father wakes up, the control is lost. The father must die first. He walks down the narrow, steep staircase. He places his feet on the very edge of the wooden treads. The edges are the strongest points. The edges do not bow. The edges do not creak. He descends into the parlor. The moonlight cuts through the gap in the window shades. It illuminates the heavy standing mirror. He ignores the mirror for now. He walks toward the downstairs bedroom archway. He stands in the doorway. He looks at the bed. The father and mother are shapes in the dark. The killer raises the axe. He does not rush. He aligns his body. He grips the bottom of the handle with his left hand. He grips the middle of the handle with his right hand. He lifts the heavy steel head over his shoulder. He steps forward. He brings the axe down. The steel head crushes through bone and brain matter. He pulls the axe back up. The force of his backswing drives the weapon into the ceiling above the bed. The plaster shatters. He pulls the axe free. He strikes again. He strikes the mother. He crushes her skull before she can open her eyes. The primary threats are eliminated. The house belongs to him now. He walks back up the stairs. The axe handle is slick with warm blood. It drips onto the wooden steps. He enters the front bedroom. He strikes the 2 visiting sisters. He walks into the back bedroom. He strikes the 4 more children. The process is entirely devoid of passion. It is a terrible rhythmic chore. Swing, pull, swing, pull. The silence of the house returns. The breathing stops. He walks downstairs. He finds the black skirts in the closet. He drapes the mirrors. He blocks out the reflections. He walks into the kitchen. He opens the icebox. He lights the stove. The smell of raw blood mixes with the smell of cooking pork. He eats his meal. He washes his hands in the ceramic bowl. He sets the axe against the wall. He walks out the back door. He vanishes into the early morning mist. The parasite. The modern investigation pieces together the timeline. It pieces together the mechanics. The narrative seems complete. A transient killer slipped into the house while the family was at church, waited for 2 hours and executed his plan. But a final review of the original crime scene photographs shatters this assumption. The experts look closely at the picture of the attic floor. They look at the pile of hay near the brick chimney. They look at the physical indentation left by the killer's body weight. The indentation is deep. The hay is crushed flat against the wood. The shape is permanent. 2 unlit cigarettes rest beside it. In the far corner of the cramped space, the early investigators noted a pile of human waste. Behavioral scientists calculate the variables. A man waiting in a hot attic for 2 hours does not create a permanent, deep depression in dry hay. A man waiting for 2 hours does not accumulate that volume of human waste. The physical evidence points to an impossible reality. The killer did not slip into the house during the Sunday evening church service. He slipped into the house days earlier. The killer lived in their attic. He was a parasite inside the walls of their sanctuary. He was there for perhaps 3 days, perhaps a full week. This revelation recontextualizes every minor detail of the days leading up to the massacre. The week prior, Sarah Moore complained to her neighbor about missing food. She baked fresh loaves of bread. She placed them in the bread box. The next morning, half a loaf was gone. She blamed the town mice. Josiah Moore complained about the old house settling. He told his brother the house groaned at night. He heard strange creaks coming from the ceiling while he tried to sleep. He blamed the summer wind pushing against the roof. The family dog, a small terrier, spent hours barking at the ceiling in the upstairs hallway. The dog paced back and forth, staring at the square access panel leading to the attic. The dog whined. The dog scratched at the walls. The family scolded the dog. They put the dog outside. The human brain possesses an incredible capacity for denial. The brain protects itself from terror by rationalizing anomalies. Bread is eaten by mice. Wood expands in the heat. Dogs bark at invisible insects. The brain refuses to accept the existence of a predator sharing its space. But the predator was there. He crouched in the dark, directly above their heads. He listened to their conversations. He learned their names. He learned what time they ate dinner. He learned what time the father locked the doors. In the dead of night, while the family slept, he opened the access panel. He climbed down into the kitchen. He stole a piece of bread. He drank water from their pump. He walked back upstairs. He climbed back into his nest. He sat in the dark and waited for the perfect night to claim his prize. The true horror of the Villisca axe murders is not the violence. It is not the gore. It is the destruction of the boundary between safety and extreme danger. The 8 victims did not die because they made a mistake. They died because they believed the locked door protected them. The most terrifying aspect of this crime is not how the victims died. It is how long they lived with their murderer without ever knowing it. The unseen danger. Tonight, you will walk through your home. You will turn off the lights. You will check the locks on your doors. You will slide the deadbolt into place. You will lie in your bed and listen to the ambient sounds of your house. The refrigerator motor humming, the wind brushing against the siding. When the house settles and a sharp creak echoes from the floorboards above you, your brain will tell you it is just the wood adjusting to the temperature. It will tell you that you are perfectly safe. It will tell you that you are alone. But history proves the brain lies. If you want to dive deeper into the psychological profiles of unsolved cases and learn how to identify the subtle signs of danger your brain is trained to ignore, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your survival depends on recognizing the patterns before the locks click shut.